Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Doyle Banks, one of the cast of thousands of teachers here at PIMC. Joining me today is Gary Sanders. Those of you who got here early and came to the introduction, got to know Gary a little bit and got to know a little bit about the community and what we do here. And to my right, your left, is the Venerable Jim Dalton, master of all things. We like to have fun around here and laugh, so if you're the more serious type, please do not be offended and feel free to join along in the laughter. So, as you came in this morning, hopefully you got a sheet that looks something like this. And if you did not, maybe someone could grab a couple. And if you don't have one and would like one, raise your hand. And we'll see to it that whoever wants one gets one. What? Oh, it's the loving kindness meditation. It should say the Buddha's words on loving kindness at the top. Oh, yeah. Thank you. And I forgot to mention we have Robert's ghost here with us today. He left his jacket and his guitar stand behind, so we'll hold him in our consciousness as well with us this morning. He's probably not watching. He's leading a retreat somewhere way up north. I can't remember. He's been wandering around a lot lately. Hard to keep track of him. Avi, do you have an announcement for us? Yay. I hope.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Avi. I'm community coordinator here. We have a unusual situation. Rebecca, our teacher for the children, has had a death in her family. So as we are all thinking about ways in which sending loving kindness out into the world, I invite you to send some loving kindness to Rebecca and her family. Which means that we're going to have to play it by ear a little bit in terms of the kids. We've got, at this point, I think 5 or 6 kids down there. The parents are doing a really good job of playing nice together and working it out in terms of who's going to be down there, at least one parent. But it would be nice if there could be at least one other volunteer there for at least some of the time. Thank you so much, Steele. And you don't have to stay there the entire time. Just if maybe another person, maybe during the second hour during the Dharma talk, could come in for a little bit. If those of you who are familiar with kids know, even 5 kids is a lot of kids. So have a really good sit and a really nourishing time today. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Avi. For those of you who are new here and you don't know yet what community coordinator means, it means being the person who is called on at the last minute for everything and makes it all kind of come together with some kind of pixie dust or something. I'm not sure what all of his magical powers are, but Avi does a wonderful job of helping us keep things rolling along here. So thank you, Avi. Thanks to all of you who are helping this morning and who help out with the children's program on an ongoing basis. So Who is new here today? New like you've been here one or maybe two times? Okay, great. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for coming to be with us. And a lot of folks who come through the doors are coming from situations where they're kind of escaping religion, and they've been wounded in one way or another by religion and some of the trappings around it. And I'm saying this because what we're about to do next could bring some of that up for some of you. And it's not intended to be harmful at all. In fact, these words that I'm going to invite us to recite together. Now it says chant on the sheet, but this morning, I thought maybe rather than trying to chant, we would just recite them together. But these words are 2,700 years old or so, and depending on your view of the Dharma, goes back even further to previous Buddhas. So this is a teaching on what we call loving kindness, or the Pali word is metta. And loving kindness is pretty much like it sounds. It's bending our minds, if you will, toward holding thoughts of kindness toward, we start with ourselves and then progressively expand out. Those of you who practice this on a regular basis know that you start with self, and then generally you extend the loving kindness to people you're close to, people you hold dear in your heart, then maybe to your teacher or spiritual benefactors, then on to maybe people like that are more kind of neutral in your lives, people like neighbors, or I always like to send it out to the people, the checkout people at Freddy's where I go, or New Seasons and that kind of thing. And then when you get your loving kindness muscles built up a little bit, then maybe you want to extend it out to less pleasant people, either who directly are in your life or in your life more tangentially, like in places like Washington, D.C., I'm just saying, or wherever they might happen to be. So, with that in mind, let's recite these words together, and we'll kind of naturally fall into a rhythm as we go. And don't worry about, if you say a word when nobody else is saying it, it's all good. All right? So let's recite the Buddha's words on loving kindness. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. So if you think about what we just recited together, if we could create that kind of world, it'd be a pretty sweet world, wouldn't it? It's a world I'd like to live in, and I'm guessing most of you, if not all of you, would as well. A little bit later, when we get to the Dharma talk, I'm going to be talking today about how we create our worlds and our experiences of the world. And so I'd like to just kind of plant that seed in your hearts and minds as we go into our meditation time, to be starting to think, even in your meditation. Yes, I'm asking you to think. Think about, what do you create in your experience of life? What kind of worlds do you build in you and around you? And how can we aim at creating worlds that look more like this? And that's what I'll be talking about in a little more depth here in a little while. So, as is our custom, we'll go into silence now for the next half an hour or so. And when we're done with that, I'll ring the bell again. And then Jim will lead us in some mindful movement. Then we'll have some announcements. And then you'll get to listen to me for a while. So please don't leave. It'll hurt my feelings. No. So here we go. Together, let's take in a deep breath. Let it out. And take in another deep breath and notice where you feel the breath and the energy of the breath coming into the body. And then allowing it to leave the body. So start with noticing that you exist in a body that breathes. Tune into the rhythm of your breathing. Then ask yourself if this rhythm of breathing and the breath itself feels good. If it does, stay with it. If it doesn't, play with it. Play in the sense of experiment, of testing what kind of breath would feel really good right now. Some of you may have a certain pain somewhere in your body, in your back or a shoulder or wherever. Ask your body, what kind of breath would feel really good for my shoulder right now or for this pain? It might be a long breath in and a short breath out. Short in, short out. Short in, long out, whatever. But allow yourself to use your ingenuity to find what your body needs right now, and then settle into that. This is a way of giving our minds something skillful to do. Nobody's being harmed when we're sitting here paying attention to our breath and to our bodies. There's no theft happening. There's no ill will or injury or harsh words. So for the moment, the next few moments, let's create in each of us a world that's free from suffering as best we can. You may notice that your mind has wandered off. And when you notice it, simply remind yourself to come back, pay attention to the breath. Do that as kindly and as much without judgment or criticism of yourself as you can. Just gently and lovingly come back to your breath. Follow it as long as you can, and when your mind wanders off and you realize it has wandered off again, just simply come back. As we come to the end of our silent sit, think back over the last several minutes now. What kind of world or worlds have you created in your mind, with your mind? Which ones have been skillful? Which ones have been less than skillful? Again, not with criticism or judgment, but just noting which ones resulted in more happiness, more peace, more joy, less stress. And which ones seem to actually invite or create more stress? And how is it that you would like future worlds to be? What is it you would like to become as a result of your efforts in meditation? One of the factors of the Noble Eightfold Path that the Buddha taught was right resolve, or skillful resolve, wise resolve. Part of that is being able to skillfully and wisely set our intention on what we want to become as a result of our efforts in meditation, the result of training our minds. That can fuel then the skillful, the healthy desire to keep practicing, to keep coming back, to keep aiming for the goal no matter how many times we miss. So let yourself resolve skillfully to become more of the skillful being you want to be. And celebrate the ways that you've been able to do that already in your life, even if just for the span of a single breath. So gently and lovingly and mindfully allow yourself to bring your body to a standing position. And we'll have Jim lead us in some skillful movement.
I'm going to move Robert for a minute here. So what kind of world do we want to build now? We have several elements to work with. We have the earth element that's connecting us to the floor. There's a boundary between what we call the body and what we call the floor, and there's a sensation in the bottoms of the feet we call pressure, but there's a dynamic to that. There's a pressure pushing up from the floor as well as a pressure pushing down from our bodies. So there's this earth element is not a thing, it's an interchange. If we open our eyes and look up to the corner of the room on one side and then over to the other and then down to the same side on one side and then down to the floor on the other. The eyes have moved around in the orbits with no friction, no resistance. We have this intention that Doyle was talking about to look up, then over, we look down to the opposite corner, and the eyes are rolling around in this water element. So that's another dynamic interchange. We breathe. There's a possibility of filling all the little nooks and crannies in the lungs, and then there's a possibility of emptying all of them. What happens if we fold up and then open up again? And then whose air is it? Is it mine, or do I have to release it? Is it yours, or do you have to release it? And hopefully you had a nice, healthy breakfast that's burning up inside of you and giving you energy so you can sink and lift. Where'd the power come from to lift those arms? Arms that weigh 4, 5, 6 pounds of flesh and blood and bone. Somehow there's the resolve to lift, and it happens, and then releasing happens. What kind of world do we want to build right here in this combination of 4 elements, this arrangement, this aggregation of 4 elements? We want this world of the body to be smooth and soft and not filled with contraction and friction and tightness. The dynamic interchange of all the elements works so much better if we've got a flow. If we don't have to think about, how do I get from here to here to here to here? We just trust the body to understand this symbol, lifting. I'm going to do it from the side here. Lifting water. I'm standing next to a creek. I'm drawing the energy out of the creek. I'm bending my elbows and pouring the energy into my legs. So there's this symbol phrase, lifting water. How does that feel? The whole body responds to this notion of interchange of energy from below in the creek to filling up the legs with new energy. Then I'm going to reach across and just focus on the palm of my hand and let the other palm face the earth and bring both hands across the midline and over to the other side and then switch. Again, there's a symbol of the we call cloud in the imagination. And then you switch hands, you got a new cloud, but you have a shadow underneath. So we have this imagination that can link up all these different perceptions. A hand connected through attention with the eyes, a hand connected through the imagination with the earth. The shadow underneath is a symbol in our imagination that brings consciousness to the lower hand. How does that work? And it all rides on the breath. We can tie in the lifting of the lower hand with the inhale, and then a long exhale. inhale and a long exhale. And having these two hands cross the midline and go over to one side changes the sensations in the feet. When we started, the feet were evenly balanced and touch with the floor. We have two hands over here. The feet feel very different one from another. So again, we have this symbolic organization into, we're pouring the energy into one leg, and we're sensing that, we're pouring the energy into the other leg. Left and right, side by side. What happens if we pour the energy forward and press, and then release the shoulders? So for a time, we're feeling this agency of pressing, but then release that. We have the ability to focus our attention into one corner and focus our balance, move towards that corner. That center of gravity moves towards the corner. And all these different sensations tell us that there's a rhythm to this. Sometimes the toe is off the ground, so sometimes it's stabilizing us in front. We can come back to the center and pause, and then feel the sensations in the bottoms of the feet. The weight is equal, but the sensations aren't exactly the same because they've been doing different kind of work. The left foot had one function, and the right foot had a different function as we stepped forward and backward. So there might be a slightly different rhythm to those sensations in the lower legs. See if we can catch it this way. Push and release. Soft shoulders, soft wrists. Breathing in as we come up, breathing out as we go forward. Using the imagination to picture a locomotive wheel. Put the palms facing each other. And then as they go forward and down, it's like we're turning the wheel of the locomotive. So with the ability to bring consciousness to symbols, we can organize all these sensations into a smooth flow. How did we learn that? Now we're going to get a little more complicated. I'm taking you through the Harvard movements that they found very healing for all kinds of different people. Whether their symptoms were arthritis, diabetes, heart, whatever. They put the right hand up, thumb up, press a balloon against that right hand and pull it across, and then drop down the left. And feel how your body knows how to be balanced with weight up the right corner, and it knows how to be balanced with weight down to the left. The head can stay above the tailbone, and there's a sense of poise and dignity to the spine, and there's a sense of fluid movement in the shoulders and arms and legs and toes. Consciousness of sensation, consciousness of feeling, consciousness of the space we're pushing into and drawing back from consciousness of sound. So we're building quite a world. All these different elements are coming together. Stepping left, the left hand is up, the right hand presses a balloon against it, so there's this feeling of softness and roundness, so you can just flow. Strength in the left leg when you move forward, strength of different type when you come back into the right. The right's just sinking into the earth. Left is kind of exploring the forward space. So we have a symbol for this called roll back. And it applies to the hips, it applies to the shoulders, it applies to the feet. Everything is flowing back or flowing forward. So we call it roll back. Okay, where are we? Okay, one more short one here. This is the most complicated, but it's not that big a deal. Right foot forward, right hand down, palm down. And the weight's on the left side. Bring the left hand up. Go forward with your left. Come across with the right. Come across with the right. Come forward with the left. So this is a rolling motion too, but the right side of the brain is organizing one kind of movement with the left hand and a completely different movement with the right. And that's not a problem. It just does it. We call this brush knee, and the symbol organizes all these sensations. The right hand keeps crossing the midline. The left hand never crosses. And we step to the left, sink into the right, place the left hand towards the floor, and then push with the right. So brushing the knee is a simple little phrase, but you're conscious of shoulder, elbow, wrist, feet, hips, and your center of gravity is forward and then back. Your axis of your spinal axis is twisting and turning. So that's the world we're building. Harmony and flow. And it has a karmic consequence because we did it with intention. We're going to come back to stillness, and there's going to be an after effect. There's going to be consequences to our choice. We get a brief respite from the craziness of modern American sensation battering that we call our civilization. We're just standing and resting. Rebuilding the element of earth and water and air and fire into the next event, whatever that might be. Thank you.
Good morning, Sangha. Can everyone hear me? I think so. Can you hear me? Cool. As I said before, my name is Avi, and my role here is to attend to the details of this place, and hopefully I do that in a mindful way, or at least that is my practice, to try and do that. I'd like to say that my pronouns are male pronouns, if any of you are interested. So I have a bunch of announcements. Ancient ritual announcement. Thousands of years people have been giving announcements, and we continue that here. There are Dharma consultations available if you have an issue that is coming up in your practice, or if you would like a quick on-ramp to starting a daily practice today, Jim would be happy to spend about 20 minutes with you today. I think he can see 2 or 3 people today, so see Jim afterwards if that is something that you would like. If you can't do it today and that's something that interests you, you can contact me at my office and I would be happy to set something up for you. I also should announce right here that I am going on retreat myself after Thursday, and I will be gone for all of next week and be back on the 19th. So I know that Gregory will be filling in the gap as best as he can, and please be patient if you send an email or give a voicemail or something that's not being returned. So what else we got here? Let me just talk about a few things that are just part of the deal here. So there is a donation box in the back there by the door. There is a donation bowl there. There is an iPad there that can swipe your plastic. As Robert likes to say, these bowls and boxes and magic implements, they take your money and they turn it into Dana, and when it's turned into Dana, it gives this place magic energy, which helps keep it running, which keeps the bills paid, and which pays for the staffing of me and the other people who staff this place and the other things that need to happen. So we all have a refuge here in this place. So if this place is meaningful to you and it gives you something, please donate what you can. Robert has talked about the fact that with expenses increasing because we are doing more programs, and we are certainly getting more of a response from the community in terms of people coming in here to check us out and to be with us. We need to increase our total Dana over the year by 10 to 15%, especially with the complications around the wheelchair ramp, which is still, as last I heard, is deep in the bowels of the city bureaucracy. And it will happen. It's just going a bit slower than we thought it would. Then in terms of energy, another way in which you can supply magic to this place is by volunteering your effort and your time and your attention. There's any number of things here that need to get done, and that is the excuse for us taking refuge in the Sangha. We come here and we do things, and yet at the same time we also get to know one another. So there is a volunteering page on the website, and you can look at that. You can reach out to Kirsten, who will be our volunteer coordinator for a little while longer. We are going to be transitioning that, typical of impermanence, because she is going to go off to Colorado to learn how to be a counselor. So that will happen sometime next month. But for the time being, reach out to her. There are also sign-ups on the website. The volunteer page directs you to that, and if you see something that you'd like to sign up for, please do, and Kirsten will get back to you and you can talk about more about what your vision is for what you would like to do in this place in terms of contributing your attention and your time, because whatever skills and abilities and experience you have, we have a way to use it. We just need to figure out how to make that work. If you want to receive emails in your inbox to find out about this place, rather than having to go to our website, boy, that's a few clicks. That's an awful lot of work. I wouldn't ask anybody to do that. But if you did, that would be great. But if you want it in your inbox, so you don't even have to do those clicks to get to our website, there is a sign-up sheet there by the double doors. It's blue paper. Please give us your contact information, and we will guarantee you emails in your inbox. So you don't have to do anything. It'll just come to you. And then we also have something we call the Transitions Project. That empty chest right there will receive your clothes and items that you don't need. Those items go to the Transitions Project in Northwest Portland, which helps the homeless get back on track with their lives. We've been donating to them for a lot of years, and we have contributed an awful lot of stuff, and it has helped an awful lot of people. So please, if you have things at home, we welcome you to come by and put them in that chest, and they will find their way there. Then in terms of specific things that we have going on, as always with the children's program, we do need people to sign up for to help with the kids. Even when Rebecca is here, it is helpful to have a volunteer or two. There is a sign up on the website that can show you how to do that. If you feel moved to do that, it would certainly help for you to do it for one time, but if you could do it once a month, that would really make it a lot easier for us to assure that we have the adequate staffing that we need. As far as the upcoming month, on Sunday, July 14th, which is next Sunday, we've got our PIMC potluck, so feel free to unearth your secret family recipes, create casseroles, bring them, and we can all share food and companionship with one another. Then, what's that? Oh, yes, and include the list of ingredients too, so that we can allow our friends with dietary limitations to take care of themselves. Thank you for reminding me about that. Then on Saturday, July 20th, we have our Buddhist movie night. We're screening Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon. If you have any questions about that, Mickey, can you take questions? Mickey has raised her hand, and she'd be happy to talk with you about that. Also on Saturday, July 20th, we have Jim's monthly half-day Qigong retreat. And if you like what he did for 10 minutes, you'll love what he does for 4 hours. It's really wonderful. And then also on Saturday, July 20th, we also have a 12-mile, roughly 9-hour mindfulness hike with Vic. And Vic would be happy to answer your questions. The details will be going up on the website this week, and pre-registration is required for only 12 people. So if that interests you, please get right on that. Then on the end of July, 26th through 31st, or the 26th through the 28th, is Robert's Brighton-Bush retreat. Robert is on retreat right now up in Canada, and then he will be here for a few days toward the end, and then he will be spending the final week in Brighton-Bush. I believe that there is still space in that retreat. Go to the website to find out more. On Saturday, August 3rd, we have our first Saturday day-long retreat. Every month we have a day-long, and August 3rd is the date of the next one. Sunday, July 4th, we have our next monthly newcomer orientation session. And then on Wednesday, Sunday, August 4th, our next monthly newcomer orientation. And then on Wednesday, also Sunday, August 4th, we have our next regular meeting of the Engaging the Dharma initiative. We actually have that going on today. If you would like to find out more about taking your practice off the cushion and bringing it into the community, I believe that there will be people gathering in the living room after the Dharma talk. And then finally, on Tuesday, August 13th, this is not a thing that will happen, this is a thing that won't happen. On Tuesday, August 13th, there will be no NVC practice for the month of August. The NVC practice group is taking a month off, and will reconvene in September. And if you have any other questions about anything else that you have any questions about, please feel free to call me at the office or email me or come and visit. I work in the mornings, Monday through Thursday. And thank you all for being here, and I wish you all a blessed day. Oh, one other thing. Here, if I can use this, I can use this station. Is this on? Completely forgot. If we could have one more person to help with the kids downstairs for a little bit of time, it would mean missing the Dharma talk, a little bit of the Dharma talk, but it's like only for 20 minutes or half an hour. That would be great. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, Avi. In Avi's universe, there is a Sunday, July 4th. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to share with you today some thoughts on how we go about creating these worlds that we live in and our experiences of the world. One of the discoveries of the Buddha in his relentless pursuit of truth was that these minds create their experience through a set of actions and the results of those actions, and I'm going to be sharing some of that information with you today. But I thought to help get you kind of in the mindset that I'd like you to be in for this, I'd like to have you do a little exercise. So in a moment, I'm going to invite you to stand and to form little small groups of 3 or 4. And as with pretty much everything around here, there's no demand. So if you're not comfortable, doing small group kind of stuff, it's not going to be anything deeply personal or, confessional or anything like that. But even so, if you're not comfortable with that, then, just stay seated and that's fine. On the other hand, I challenge you to participate, because in a lot of things in life, the more we participate, the more we get from our participation. So what I'm going to have you do is stand, form small groups, 3 or 4 people, and fill in the sentence. Some of you already know where I'm going with this. Fill in the sentence of, I would love to live in a world where. Fill in the blank. Okay? I would love to live in a world where. So when I invite you to stand and form the groups, introduce yourselves to one another if you don't know each other briefly. We're just going to take about 3 minutes to do this. And then when you hear the bell, I'll invite you to just pause, because I'll have another thing for you to do before I have you sit down again. Okay? So if you're willing to participate, stand. Find a couple people to join you. Share your name. And I would love to live in a world where. And I'm going to ask you to pause for a minute. Please raise your hand if you have not had a chance to share your completed sentence. Everybody has? Great. Okay, thank you. So what I'm going to ask now is, before you take a seat, I'd like you to just pause, let that sink in, what you stated as your response, and then what you heard from other people. And then I'm going to ask for 2 volunteers to come up and take turns just briefly sharing what your sentence was, what your longing for the world is, okay? So, anybody want to volunteer? Vic is one. Can I have a second? All right, I don't know your name yet, but okay, thank you. All right, so please find your seats, and if you guys would come up. Thank you, sir. This is Vic.
Hi, good morning. My name is Vic. I guess my sentence was, I would love to live in a world where hate is not encouraged and glorified. And I say that because of a very recent experience. I I know you guys are aware that there's the Portland Blues Festival that's happening right now. So I was there, and on the 4th, I finished listening to the main bands, and I was heading towards the Max when I saw these two very nice, clean-cut young gentlemen who were coming towards me. And when they saw me, they said, "White power, white power." And I chose not to engage with them. And then they said, "Do you want me to say it?" And they called me the N-word. And it was disappointing, but I know that this is conditioning, and I hope that that kind of hate doesn't exist. So that was my wish.
I can't imagine what that was like. And I'm deeply saddened that that became part of your experience in this life. And thank you for your courage, both in that moment and in sharing that with us. Thank you. And tell me your name again.
Joe.
Joe. Okay, you want to hold it?
Sure.
Here, okay.
Well, that's a hard act to follow. But my wish was, or what I would hope for, is a world where everyone had at least basic economic security. You know, everybody deserves clean water, some form of shelter, and at least, the basic necessities nutritionally. And that, unfortunately, it's not the world we live in. I mean, I know that doesn't sound like necessarily a Buddhist type want, but that's what I had to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, Joe, that's quite Buddhist, and thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we want, one of the precepts is to do no harm, and there's so much harm done at an economic level, globally, as well as here locally, and to want to live in a world where there is enough for all is really a deep longing, I think, and really, I think probably everyone's heart, whether or not they talk it or admit to it or not. So thanks for sharing that. Thank you. How many of you could relate to either of those? Yeah. Thank you. So, the Buddha, as I mentioned a minute ago, discovered that the human mind, human existence, creates our experiences in life, and creates these worlds. And we do this constantly. And it's neither good nor bad in and of itself. And as with pretty much most things, it depends on whether we apply skill or not. What I mean by that is, if we walk the Noble Eightfold Path, then we're attempting in each thought, in each word, in each action to bring skill and wisdom, ultimately, so that we can find the true happiness and complete liberation from stress and suffering. The Buddha realized, as he taught in his first sermon to his 5 of the monks who had gone forth with him initially, and it's depicted in the tapestry back on the wall here. He explained to them the Four Noble Truths. There's this stress in life, this suffering, and it comes as a result of craving and clinging. And the more we crave and the more we cling, the more we become that which we think about. In the group of verses known as the Dhammapada, the first section explains this, that we become what we think about. And if our thoughts are on things like, how bad everything is, then guess what appears in our universes, our worlds? More of that. And it doesn't mean that we can just, go all Pollyanna and ignore things that are happening in the world. What it hopefully encourages us to do is to train these minds to create more of what we really do want. More worlds where there is equality, more worlds where there is respect for one another and acceptance and tolerance, more worlds where everyone has enough, goes to bed at night with a reasonably full belly, with enough water, with enough shelter to help them get through the next day and the next and so on. And to live at a level to have a level of living so that we all can turn our minds toward the pursuit of freedom from suffering. Many of you probably here in the room have been in situations in your life where you've not had enough. And sitting on a meditation cushion for 20 minutes or an hour a day was probably not top of mind. If you were wondering where your next meal was going to come from, or how you were going to pay the rent, or how you were going to get clothes for your kids so they could go to school, or whatever it might have been. Right? So if we could live in a world like Joe's longing for, we could all have this wonderful opportunity and privilege to pursue this freedom and to encourage others and help others do so. The second teaching, I mentioned the first teaching with the Four Noble Truths depicted in the tapestry back on the back wall. The second teaching, the Buddha presented to some more monks what he called dependent arising or dependent origination. And that's sounds like a big scary term, but it's simply a way of describing how these minds work. And he used a word called samsara. How many of you have heard that word, samsara? Okay. We can kind of mistakenly think that samsara is a place, but it's not. It's an action. It's a way of being, right? And it simply means, one interpretation of the word is wandering. So how many of your minds wandered this morning? Now come on, be honest. All right, okay. There may be some of you who have already gone beyond here. So anyway, these minds wander and create stress and suffering. So we can analyze this as the Buddha did and learn how to turn this to our advantage. Or we can go through another lifetime in ignorance, and I don't use that as a pejorative term. I use it as it's simply a label for not knowing the Dharma. We can be ignorant of the truth of life, of how life really is, and continue creating more and more stress and suffering. Or we can learn how to turn this to our advantage, to become skillful at it, and create more and more freedom, liberation, and joy, and peace, and equality, and sharing, and generosity, all the things that you probably all shared with each other a few minutes ago. So this is part of a larger diagram. If you were here a couple months ago, you may remember Robert brought out the picture of the wheel of suffering, and it had lots of little images on it, but it had basically 12 images depicting kind of this wheel of suffering. And this is sort of an extract of that. And can anyone not see this? Okay. So we have these 6 senses, right? We've got bodies with, most of us, with eyes and ears, noses, mouths, skin, and or epidermis, as one of my friends likes to refer to it. And then minds, right? The minds that think. And we make contact with the world. We see objects, see these things we call flowers, see people and so on. We smell and so on. Well, what happens is that we develop craving. We either want more of what allows pleasure to rise, or we want to avoid and push away from or get away from painful, unpleasant experiences. And then we cling to those experiences, and the more we cling, the more we become, or the more we create these worlds. And as we go through becoming, this is depicted in that tanka, the painting, as a pregnant woman. So the seeds get planted, and then there's this life that starts taking shape, this world that is in the process of becoming. And then it's birthed into the world outwardly. And then, of course, we go on through aging, illness, and death, and lamentation, and sorrow, and so on, like the Buddha explained. So this, on one level, could be very academic, and that's not where I want to leave you with it today. I want to help you learn how to apply this minute to minute in your lives. So I mentioned, we can do this in ignorance, and if I may, Vic, if I could use your example, the men who confronted you, they saw a person with a skin color different than theirs. That was the contact coming through their eyes. They have a certain craving alive in them, a thought that the world ought to be full of people with only white skin. And they cling, obviously, to that view. And they walk around with this becoming in them that creates things like aggression and judgment, bigotry, and so on. And then surprise, surprise, that's what's born from that view in their lives. They could awaken and come to understand, which would be back up here somewhere in the diagram, that there's a different world that they could help create. A world where we respect and care about one another and take care of one another. And they could crave that. And they could practice clinging to that and allow that seed to grow in them and give birth to that in the world. One of the most powerful things that happened to me at the beginning of my meditation practice was coming to understand that at any point along here, awareness can happen. And in that moment of awareness, I have a choice. I have choice. Think about that. I have a choice about how I want to let my mind work, how I want to use my words, how I want to use my ability to act. And if I have begun to practice or learn what a skillful view of the world is, I can do this with more and more skill, and I can keep coming around and around and around, creating more and more skill in my life. Right? So what does that mean for you and your meditation practice? Well, sometimes we hear that, when we practice meditation, hello, there's a little chigger enjoying my iPhone. Just thought I'd share that with you. So where was I? So sometimes we hear that instructions along the lines of, when you sit, try to blank out all your thoughts. Try to blank out all your desires. And the implication there is that desire is wrong or bad or evil. Well, I've got good news for you. It's not. In fact, think about it for a minute. Would you be sitting here right now if you didn't have some craving to become free from the suffering in your life? Right. Of course not. So craving, it's just a piece of life. And if we learn how to use it skillfully, if we learn how to turn it toward, okay, I want to see if I can find a way to create more peace and joy and happiness and loving kindness in my life, then I really want to be serious about wanting that.
Yes, I'm not allowed to be frivolous.
Thank you, Siri. Go back to sleep now, honey. The times we live in, eh? So if I want to be dedicated, then I'm going to want to cultivate that craving and clinging for more experiences, to create more worlds of all these great things that, love and loving kindness and so on. And I'm going to want to allow those to take seed in me and to nourish that seed and to give birth to that over and over and over, every moment of every day that I possibly can be awake enough to do so. So, if you've been under the impression that any part of your meditation is about eradicating desire, I would invite you to challenge that thinking and try this on for a while. I know I went through a period like that in my life where I was trying to kind of do a psychic frontal lobotomy or something to myself, for me it was about getting rid of my anger habits. And it didn't work, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working until I started learning this, and I realized, oh, okay, it's not working because the mind is going to crave and it's going to cling. That's what the mind does. The trick is giving it something skillful to crave and to cling to. So I went through a period during my divorce where there would be evenings. We cohabitated for a couple of years once we had agreed to separate or divorce to co-care for our son, who was a young guy at that point. And there were, even though we both agreed to the divorce and we both knew it was time, it was still painful. And there would be evenings where we had this huge backyard, and all I could do would be go from one end of the yard way out to where the trees started. Just, may I be happy. May Peggy, my former wife, be happy. May our kids be happy. May I be happy. May she be happy. May our kids be happy. Sometimes for hours. Sometimes until late in the night. As painful as that could be at times, when I thought about some of the reasons, some of the ways that my behavior had gotten us, in part, my part in that had gotten us to that point, it's like, this is a hell of a lot better than what I used to be doing. And it really convinced me of the efficacy of the Buddha's discovery and the power of it. So in each moment, whenever anger would want to arise, I could pause, hit the pause button, and ask myself, is that the way I want to take this? And the more and more I could pause and make a skillful choice, the more I chose, no, let's go with loving kindness. That's always better. And it always was. And it still is. There's still a lot of mornings where I wake up and my first thoughts are, may I be happy. May Peggy be happy. May our kids be happy. And so on, out through the rest of my life. And I'm happy to report that my former wife, Peggy, is still a dear friend in my life, and I in hers. And, our kids, have been able to heal a lot of their pain, I think as a direct result of my being able to carry loving kindness in me in a way that kind of helped open some doors in their hearts and lives and help them start to create better worlds for themselves. I just want to say a couple of things quickly about meditation practice itself in this context. Some of us can come to meditation and we want really clear, finely detailed, how do I do it? Right? Any of you like that? You really, yeah, I think, and that's part of how some of us are built. We really want to know, okay, tell me the next thing to do and then the next. And I want to get it right, or I want to, I want it to start working as quickly as possible. What a lot of you have found is that it's a little more amorphous and fluid than that. There are certain basic instructions. Keep coming back to the breath. The reason we say that is because the breath takes place in this body, and this is the vehicle that we have in this lifetime to work with. So we don't want to be trying to get out of the body. We want to come home, as Robert often says, come home to the breath. Get centered in the body and really be fully present to the experience of this human mind and this human body in this present moment. Even and especially when there's pain or suffering happening. Because, again, the more we train these minds to cultivate and give birth to things like loving kindness, generosity, and so on, then we're not being thrown around randomly through life by either pain from inside or pain from outside. But we are home in our moment-to-moment experience of life, and we can operate from that home base with skill. One of the things that has been a helpful instruction to me on meditation is to bring my ingenuity and my powers of observation to each meditation experience. And by that, we want to... My son is a master cellist. And one of the things that I remember him discovering as he'd been practicing and practicing over and over and over for years and years and years. And there came a point in his practice where he could begin to take the scales and the notes written on the page and play with them. Right? He could try doing different phrases, different ways. And as he did that, he discovered a whole new life could come to a Bach piece that probably millions of other cellists have played over the few hundred years since Bach wrote his cello suite. But a whole new life could come in a certain playing with that. Similarly, in our meditation practice, we want to become ingenious, not ingenious bastards, but ingenious with our breath and playing so that we know intimately what kind of breath feels good in this body right now. As I mentioned when we were doing the silent meditation, maybe there's a pain in the body. Can I bring the breath energy to or around that pain to make it feel better? And if you do much reading of the lives of the different meditation masters, the monks and the nuns, there's some remarkable, almost unbelievable experiences that some of them have had. I believe it was Ajahn Chah. You guys correct me if you know the story. I think it was he who had gone like 3 days out into the forest and realized he was in the process of having a heart attack. And so he went into deep meditation, and I can't remember I think maybe an attendant had come out to bring him food or something. Somehow he got the help that he needed, and they got him back safely, and he got the care that he needed. Other times, you hear of people, some of the Tibetan monks during the communist purging, underwent incredible torture and were able to come through it pretty much unscathed internally because of the power of being able to hold this consciousness, this awareness. Now, hopefully none of us will get challenged in that way, but in our own ways, right? We have really challenging things. You may remember a few weeks ago, I had sent word to Robert. I found myself down at Providence Hospital with my older daughter. She's 40 years old, and she had developed a rare form of pneumonia and had to be put into a medically induced coma for about 24 hours. That was pretty scary. And what I got to experience was I can choose peace. I can choose peace. I can choose peace. And sitting there in the room, listening to the ventilator breathing for her, I could choose peace with each push of air and extraction of air into and out of her body. And I think I have this belief that she got the benefit of that peace as well. I'm not going to get time to do it. I'd asked Denise to help me with something, and I'm not going to have time to do it. So what I'd like to invite you to do now is to close your eyes for a moment if you're comfortable doing so. Allow yourself to take a nice deep breath in, paying attention to where you notice the breath entering and leaving your body. Notice just get a sense of your whole body right now as best you can, and just ask yourself, what's the energy like in this body right now? And now go back a few moments to when you were standing in your small group and you were saying the sentence, I want to live in a world where, and then hear yourself saying whatever your response was. And just repeat that to yourself a few times. I want to live in a world where. And now, take and form that, whatever it may be. For me, it might be a world where there's peace. Taking a breath, and then give yourself that wish. May my world be a world of peace. Or may I have peace in my world. And now, think of a loved one or a handful of loved ones. And don't just think, just really bring them into your heart. See them, smell them, hear the tones of their voices. Feel the touch of their hands. Let them be really alive in you, in your world in this moment, and then offer that wish to them. May your worlds be full of peace. And then bring to mind someone who has been a benefactor or an influence for you to help you start your practice. Offer that wish to that person or those people. And then, as we did when we recited the Loving Kindness Sutra this morning, extend it up as far as you can imagine into the heavens, including the flying beings, extend it out along the surface of the earth to the four-legged beings and the crawlers and the multi-legged beings, to the reptiles, and into the waters, the lakes and streams, rivers and oceans of the world, to the swimmers. And note that in this moment, that is your world. It doesn't ignore other things that might be going on in other worlds in which you live. But in this moment, this is the world that you're creating. To the degree that you want to, and it's helpful, set an intention to daily practice creating that world, just as we did just now. And then watch for signs as you go through your day, each day, and your weeks and months. Watch for ways that that begins to manifest. If you're wanting a world of peace, watch for ways, opportunities that open up for you to be peace in a situation. Or opportunities that open up for you to receive peace and support in that way from someone else when you need it. And notice how that world becomes and is born. And if you want more of that, then simply keep practicing. Wanting it, skillfully clinging to it, letting it germinate within inside you, and then be born. Then when you're ready, open your eyes and come back into the room. We have just a couple of minutes. I would really love to hear maybe a question if someone has a question, or if there was something that was particularly helpful that you would enjoy sharing. I'd love to have you share that with us. Anyone want to volunteer? Avi?
So I was struck by your description about peace in the midst of tragedy, certainly with your daughter. That was a very hard thing to do. And I wonder, when I hear talks like this, is being at peace the same thing as not experiencing negative emotion? Can you be at peace and experience negative emotion at the same time?
Thank you. That same daughter, Rachel, gave me a wall hanging a few years ago. It hangs in my living room, and I won't quote it exactly, but the gist of it is, peace is not the absence of trouble or even negative emotion. It's the calm, it's that still point that is there even along with the rest. And that's how I've worked with it and found that to be really helpful. I hope that's helpful. Thanks for the question. One more? A question or back? Could you run that back? Thank you.
Hi. I'm Virginia. My concept of samsara is kind of external. I think.
Internal?
External.
External,
My,
got it.
my sort of understanding of that concept has been externalized. You know, birth, death, old age, sickness, and death. I really want to thank you for internalizing it. That it's actually, it sort of reminds me of the bardos, how a lot of people think the stages of death are actually external, but they can also be applied to our life as it is on a daily basis. And this is actually the first time I've heard samsara explained in this way. So, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the external is, for me, as I've developed my understanding, as one of my friends says, what I know to be true today, meaning it could change tomorrow if I get more learning, is that the external is really a manifestation of what's going on inside. And that's why this practice, to me, is so incredibly important. You know, we've got a room of 90 or 100 or so of us here this morning. And, you know, an hour or so ago, we were all sitting here quiet, you know, focusing as best we could on breath and so on. And even just a few minutes ago, sending those wishes to ourselves and out to the world. Imagine what might happen if, according to Malcolm Gladwell in his studies, if 6% of a population come into synchronicity and agreement on something like world peace, that creates, the title of his book was Tipping Point in the world. Sociologically, that creates a tipping point that can then pull the other 94% along and forward toward that. What might happen if 6% of the 7 or 8 billion of us on the planet really, really, really focused our craving and our clinging on peace, on clean water, clean air? You know, you get the idea. Holy cow. Yeah. So thank you all for your attention. Thanks for your practice and for being here, being part of this community. Thank you for letting me come and play with you today. This is, for me, this is like when I was a kid, around 8 years old, in the summertime. Once in a while, my mom, who's quite strict, would let me stay out after dark and play wiffle ball in the street with my buddies under the street lights. You know, if you can get that sense of that delight, that's what getting to be here with you and offering these talks is exactly the feeling I have. So thank you for playing playing meditation wiffle ball with me today. All right, are the youngins ready to invade? Let's bring them in. And as we usually do, if you're comfortable, stand, circle up, join hands. Thanks, Gary.
When we're done, please feel free to join us for coffee and tea down in the living room. Plenty of wonderful people to get to know.
Good morning. Hi. Did you have fun today? Yeah, we did too. You not going to sing, the three of you? Oh, great, great. All right, so we have volunteers to sing. So before we sing, let's make a wish for somebody we love. What would be a really good wish for somebody we love? You don't have to say it out loud, but just think of it in your head, your heart. And just hold that for a minute. And just in your heart, just quietly send that out to that person. All right? And if you're ready, you want to help us sing? All right?
May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much. All right, so shall we join hands? Can I hold your hand? Thank you. And everybody make a big wish, and when I count to, what? 3. When I count to 3, we'll blow out the candle. We'll be careful, don't catch your hair on fire. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. I hope you all were wishing, because the flame is out. Thank you. Please join us in back if you have time. If not, come back and join us next Sunday for our potluck. Thank you all. Have a great week. Thank you. Good job.